Hello humans, welcome back. Here we are. So this week, in conjunction with the real life Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, otherwise known as the Imola Grand Prix for the mere mortals out there, it's gonna be a sprint race. So first time in F1 2022 season, not first time, it's gonna be the first of six sprint races in real life. And well, I'm excited. Ferrari 1-2, let's get in there and let's celebrate that with a setup and hot lap guide around Imola. So, well, you might have seen the lap just by cutting 1 millimeter over the curbs, and it got invalidated very, very quickly. So, well, you're not gonna believe me, but this pretty much took like over 100 tries just to get somewhat of a decent lap. Imola is pretty hard to nail on one lap pace or around here, at least for me. So it's gonna be more about the race, how you approach the race, your ERS management in the race, and also making sure that you have a good car under your control. So you want the rear to be under control, especially through a lot of these high speed corners in Imola, and there are also some slow speed corners. For example, the Variante Alta, the Alta chicane, as it's known, the last chicane before Rivazza 1 and 2. So it's slow, and you want your car to be stable on the curbs. At the same time, you want your car to have good exit, and at the same time, you want a good turn in, which is pretty difficult to achieve for a setup. In qualifying, it can be difficult, but in the race, because you're not pushing 100%, you have heavier fuel load, you have tire wear to manage. It all comes much more easier. So here you go. The setup that I'm using here is 8-8 on the wings, pretty good on the straights. All you need to do is stay within a second of someone, and with DRS and slipstream around here, you're gonna cut down the gap from, if you're within DRS, you're gonna cut down the gap from 1 second all the way down to perhaps 4 tenths or 3 tenths by the end of the straight. That's how powerful the DRS and slipstream is around here. And say someone is running slightly higher aero than you as well, it's possible that if you're within 7 tenths of them and they're out of deployment, it's going to be an easy overtake by the end of the straight. Suspension, no, not suspension, transmission is 150. As always, 100% on throttle gives you the best initial traction. In the race, I'll definitely like to drop it down to 90, even for the race start sometimes when the tires are not so grippy, especially if you're starting on medium tires. You can start on soft tires here as well. Either way, it's good. Off throttle, I elected to go with excuse me. Off throttle, elected to go with 55% here. I've tested out 56, 57, 54, even 53, and 55 seems to be just nice. You can actually run 50% off throttle around here in Imola, because, well, the car doesn't attempt to murder you if you try to do this. Some tracks, when you run this, it's pretty impossible to handle the car. In Imola, it's possible, especially if you have ABS on. Definitely go for 50%, because this is so much more, creates a lot more rotation on the rear, and you can possibly run maybe slightly less front wing, or you can even increase your front wing, rear wing by one, and be even more stable on the corners. Up to you. And yeah, so 55, it's a good point to start. Any higher that you go, you're just gonna create a lot of entry understeer and a mid corner understeer through the corners, and especially here there's a lot of these high speed corners. You want to make sure you're nailing it right. The arrow definitely helps you to get the car pointed in the right direction, but if you have your off throttle too high, then you're gonna have a bit of that mid corner understeer. So if you're still having a bit of mid corner understeer with this setup, you can probably drop down one on the off throttle, if you feel that's the way to go, because as far as I understand, in this current build of the game, compared to when this track was released, the setups are definitely much slower. So my old setup was, well, even after ages of trying it, I'm only about 2 tenths or 3 tenths close to my PB. So it's definitely a bit of a change in the handling ever since the game, the track released. So new setup, it's definitely 2 times faster than my older one. And reason is, well, I've made adjustments to suspension geometry. Here in the old setup, I ran right, left, left, left. This is a very good baseline for most tracks when you're starting out. The problem with that is in Imola, especially through Acqua Minerali, the downhill right-hander, and then you go uphill. Pretty much, the corner that just tries to spin you out. Yeah, that corner is giving me a lot of issues on entry and mid corner. I'm getting a lot of oversteer, so I'm unable to even get the car pointed in the right direction. If I point it in the right direction, the rear just slides away. So I've tried a -1 full right to the rear camber, also works nicely, but just to give me a bit of a compromise, a bit of turning while still keeping the car very stable at Acqua Minerali. 1.5 is what I elected for. Toe and all that stuff, I keeping it at default. You can increase your front toe. Let's say just go for a qualifying run, or maybe just you have time trial, you want to go for it, or if you have park permit off, you have different setups available. uh, 1 or 2 clicks on the front toe definitely helps to make your car pointier on the initial turn in. And yeah, otherwise stick with right like this, right mid, left left. And if you still have a bit of mid corner understeer, perhaps if you don't want to disturb your transmission, you can always increase your front camber by 1 or 2 clicks at a time. So this will give you a bit more mid corner rotation, and this definitely helps in high speed. If you have mid corner understeer in slow speed, generally you want to go with lower off throttle. All right, so high speed you probably can adjust the camber, and that will give you a bit more high speed grip in high speed corners. Suspension, again, very unique to my liking. 1-1 on the suspension gives me very good traction out of corners, especially through coming out of Variante Alta, where it is probably the slowest corner, and coming out of Tosa Hairpin as well. A lot of these slow corners, you want to make sure that your car can give you the best stability and exit. So 1-1 suspension really helps over there. To get some rotation in the rear, I'm electing to go with 1-5 on the roll bars, anti-roll bars, 1 on the front, best turn in, 5 on the rear. It's just a matter of fine-tuning your car. So I started with 6, I tried 7, and I found 5 to be pretty responsive and pretty stable as well. If you find your car is oversteery without taking any curbs, let's say, or if you're taking the right line but your car just loses itself in the high speed change of direction, then you can reduce it. If you feel in the change of direction, the fast right, left, there's a lot of direction change here. If you feel the car is a little sluggish, you can increase the anti-roll bar by 1. That should help to give you a bit more movement on the rear, so your fast left, right, lefts will be very agile. Ride height, normally I'd prefer to go something lower like 1.6, but Imola is pretty special because you have to mount some of the curbs, especially in qualifying, and then in the race it gives you just that much more stability. So 1.6 and 2.7, they give you pretty much the same straight line speed, and at the same time rotation wise it's also about the same. There's not really much difference. The only reason why I'm choosing to run it higher is because it gives better clearance on the ground. So especially through corners like Variante Alta, where you need to mount the curbs on the entry to gain some time, and then turn 1, 2, 3 as well, the Tamburello chicane, a lot of curbs there as well, especially on the entry. Sometimes even if you don't clip the entry, the car just tends to unsettle if you have your ride at a little too low. 2.7 is pretty good baseline as well. As always, this is pretty much the baseline suspension that I start with, and then I just reduce the anti-roll bar and the car felt much better here. Brakes 150, no questions about this. High speed track like Imola, you really want the brake bias to be rearwards as possible, so that you can get the rotation through the high speed corners. Well, it works in this game somehow, so keep it at 50%. If you find your tires are wearing out a little too much in the rear, or maybe under braking, you're losing your rear in the race, you can increase your brake bias through the MFD by 1% at a time, and that should be good. Tires, you can run full pressures on both the front and rear tires in Imola. No such thing as tire overheating here. And perhaps if you want to just get a bit better grip on the front tires, you can go with what I did, 24.2. I've tried 23.8, 23.4. Sometimes they tend to give you less grip. This is time trial after all, so anything can work. In the race conditions, you can even go full pressures. Just be careful on traction as well, or fast direction change. If you put your pressures too high, your front might just wash out in the left, right, left, especially like in turn 1 to 3, the Tamburello chicane. If you have your pressures too high on the front, the front will tend to turning too much. So if you want to reduce the turning that the tire is producing and give it more grip on the front, lower pressure is the way to go. So here you go, recap for the setup: 8.8 on the wings. Qualifying run, probably can go 9.8. I think haven't gone into Imola league race for like months. It was all the way back in January, but if I get a chance, probably I'll experiment with 9.8 on a qualifying run. Otherwise 8.8 should be very good. You can reduce the off throttle by 1 for qualifying run, or you can just leave it at 155 all the way, reduce it to 95 or 90 as your race is progressing, if your tires are wearing out. Right mid, left for the suspension geometry. Suspension 1.1, anti-roll bars 1.5, right height 2.7, and brakes 150. Tire pressures 24.2 on the front, 23.5 maximum on the rear, and that's about it. So any changes that you want to make for the wets, I'd say just go 2 clicks higher on the wing. If it's intermediates and it's going to change conditions, you can just go with 9.9. That works in the dries as well. You just have to be a bit more cautious with your ERS deployment. Otherwise 8.8 is pretty good, even for mixed conditions here. If it's gonna be full wets, definitely worth it to increase your downforce to something like 10.10. Haven't tried 11.11. You might give it a shot, practice that out and see. But definitely high downforce will be better in the wets because it gives you better braking performance, more consistent braking performance, and under acceleration you will not have that much of wheel spin. Alright, so transmission as well, in the rain you can drop it to 54, and everything else should be okay. Tire pressures, maybe you can reduce the front by 2 clicks, maybe 23.4, 23.8, just so you get a bit more grip on the front, because it is going to become a slower kind of circuit, right? So your corners are going to be much slower than before, so you will need that front end grip. That's about it, and hope you have fun trying out this setup. Let me know as well, as always, if you have any questions, ask in the ask in the comment section, excuse me. And then if you have any suggestions for perhaps which track you want me to do next, because there's a bit of free time in between, let me know as well. Otherwise I'm gonna proceed with the upcoming tracks that I'm gonna race. So that's gonna be Zandvoort, and then it's gonna be Monza. So in between I can definitely drop in a track or 2 extra if you need. And yep, take care everyone, stay safe, and goodbye.